Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Satgurum Pranatosmyaham. So the word Ishvara, now we are beginning to understand what this word means, or in English, God, or Bhagavan, or Isha, or Parameshwaraha, or the Lord. We said that this word, you see, when the world arises, like in the dream, and despite that whole dream arising out of you, when one subject manifests in that dream, then that subject has to ask the question, who created all this? And then we say the Lord. But that Lord is really referring to you, the one from whom the dream arises, the Vivarta Upadana Karanam, the material cause who never undergoes any change. That Lord is you. So, not knowing this, as a subject in the dream, I look at myself as away from that Lord. And so I propitiate him naturally. So here we're starting to see that this Lord is not something that's away from you. It is your own power called Maya, the power of Brahman, from which is of the nature of all knowledge and all power, which manifests as this world and all the jivas within this world. So the next section now wants to expand upon how do I relate to the Lord? That's a very big question, isn't it? So far we've talked about theory. What is the Lord, God? But how do I relate to this God? And this is the essence of devotion, bhakti. This is the essence of true bhakti.
Here the I is for the jiva. I relate to. What is the I you are?
So, depends. I mean, if you do not know that this power is of Brahman and you are Brahman, then I is the jiva. Whereas if you recognize that you are that very truth, because there's only one truth here, then Ishvara too, the Lord, is also Mithya. Okay? So it depends on what is your understanding. There is a kind of relationship you will have with the Lord. But even when you understand that the Lord is Mithya, you still continue to worship him. See, because you're only worshipping yourself. There's this common misconception that once I know the Lord, now that he is Mithya, why worship the Lord? So frequently heard. Why worship him? It's like the wave in the ocean recognizes one day and says, why should I worship the ocean? Because my truth is the water, and the ocean here is Ishvara. Ishvara's truth is also water. And I'm the wave, I'm one single wave. Why should I worship, the ocean? So think about what this statement says. Why should I, the wave, worship Ishvara? What does that imply? Like, when do you even pose that question? Why should I worship that? Yeah, they're different. So it's not recognizing the essence of both the wave and the ocean. Therefore, it's as if it's parking itself outside. Why should I worship that over there? As if the ocean and I are different. As if the ocean is a different substance, a different reality. So why should I worship that reality over there? Failing to recognize that the wave is not apart from the whole. So a true wise wave is not going to ask, Why should I worship God? Because there's only God. God alone is. And we said, wherever there is mithya, that's exactly where satyam is. There's only one reality here. So, again, the question is, Yaya jagat sarvam idam prasuyate. By Maya, this entire universe. So by Maya is this entire universe, jagat, projected and born. Okay, so this is the statement. Now we have to ask, okay, so how do we relate to this Lord from which the universe has arisen? Okay, so let's look at a simple example. If I show you a pot, and you know something about this pot instantly. You know because it is round and not a square, there must have been intelligence who has sculpted this pot, an intelligent person. Okay, he knows the right kind of shape. He knows the function. It stores water. He knows to put it flat because it shouldn't drop, so he can hold the water. He knows to make it slightly bulged outwards and slightly circular. So he has all these ideas. This is called a potter. The efficient cause, the intelligent cause, we know has sculpted this pot because it is functional and it has value transactionally. So it implies there must be an intelligent cause behind it, though you don't see it. You also know that the potter has used clay. He got the clay from somewhere far away, and he used that clay, and according to his knowledge, he took that knowledge and took the material and he made something intelligent out of it. You see, this is also interesting why Maya is called the Trigunas, because that Tama guna of Maya, we said earlier, is the material. It's the way to relate to Maya. It's the material. But remember that material, don't think of it some, actual physical material. That material is only intelligence, just like in your dream. There's no external materials from somewhere else. That actual hard, non-penetratable material is nothing but impressions of your entire collective life, your past causes. So your past causes manifest as material. Your past impressions and memories manifest as hard, solid material. Now, the potter has gained the material from elsewhere. So here's a little problem now. If we look at the world, what can we infer about this well put together world? What can we infer? If this is well put together by an intelligent cause, that is a person, then if you look at a world which is so many things like this, just take a leaf, that's enough. What can you infer about the world immediately? It must be an intelligent cause behind it. In fact, it gets way more complex because everything is connected to something else. Air is connected to your lungs. Air is connected to the carbon dioxide vice versa, the sun to the photosynthesis. Okay, seasons, altitude. When you go up in altitude, your heart starts to increase more. So this means there's an automatic system. You put food inside the stomach, automatically digestive enzymes start to release. So the whole thing is automated. So you can infer, no matter what you look, just look at a leaf, that's enough. There must be an intelligent cause. Because if the sun has an effect or relationship to a plant, and the plant has a relationship to your digestive system, and the digestive system has a relationship to excretion, and when that excretion goes out, that becomes food and nutrition for other plants. Nothing's out of place. Microbes feed on microbes. You have skin mites. On the skin mites, which you don't see, there's bacteria. On the bacteria, there are viruses. Everyone's feeding everyone else. And then we eat plants. And then plants consume us, the bodies, back into the soil, back into the 5 elements, becomes yummy food, and makes tomatoes and cucumbers for the rest of us to eat. They came from what? The decomposition of a body. See, nothing here is out of place. So, now there's a little problem with this. We know that the potter has gained the materials from outside. So we also know that Ishvara is the efficient, the intelligent cause of this universe. However, now the question is, where did, if the potter got materials from elsewhere, where did Ishvara, God, get his materials from? So now, suppose you postulate this idea. Suppose you say, well, it's very simple, you see. There was this Lord, all-knowing, omniscient, and he gained the materials from somewhere else. The materials, when I say materials, I mean time, space, and all elements. Because time and space, that's also just a very subtle material. So the materials were just hanging out there somewhere, and the Lord just grabbed that time and space. He stole some time and space from some other Lord, and he created a universe for us. Maybe that's what happened. And you're like, oh, that sounds kind of a good idea, but it's not, because it poses fallacies. And the fallacy is then you ask that Lord, by the way, Lord number 2, what did you see, I don't have any materials here, I'm a little bit short on materials. Where did you get your materials from? Because you're also the Lord like me. And that Lord says, well, I got my materials from, just like you got it from me, and I got it from another Lord. Okay? So now that third Lord now has got it from the fourth from the fifth. So now you have a problem. You have infinite regression. Everyone's borrowing from everyone else. So now where's who's got materials? Okay? So the problem with borrowing materials, the all-knowing, all-pervasive being, borrowing materials from elsewhere doesn't make sense, because he is all-pervasive. And the second problem with borrowing materials is, if materials constitute time and space, then what does it look like? You have time and space over there, and I am outside that time and space. So what does this mean? I am located in space. Because to have two things automatically is within space. So now, on one hand, I am the Lord who needs to borrow time and space, and I am away from that space and time. And now, you don't have to go further into the analysis. Just to be away implies you are committing a mistake. The analysis stops right there. It's insane to continue. I am here outside space, borrowing space over there. That means I'm also located in space. So now the question is, then I as the Lord was existing in space, but then who created space? Because if I borrowed materials from another Lord, that means the materials were over there and I was over here as the Lord, and I was clearly away from that, then I was residing in space. That's the only way you have two things. One's over here, that's within space. But then who created this third space in which that space is residing and me, the Lord, am residing? In other words, the logic gets really silly. You following this? Childish. So we do not have this idea of awayness, a Lord who borrowed. So what's the only logical explanation? From where did the Lord get his materials from? The answer is from within himself. And we have a nice example from this is if you take there's another one, because everyone uses spider. I used it in the class the other time. I think it's a silkworm. A silkworm also spins its own silk from itself, and that silk has a purpose. It's to protect itself. So it finds both the intelligence to actually spin, because it does it for a reason, but also the materials comes out of that one silkworm. So it wants to show you you can have a being from whom both intelligence arises, but also as that material arises, it's not just arising randomly, it's arising and it's enveloped with intelligence that's arising from that one being. So this is one of the examples. Now, the next question is posed, and that is how, now that I know that the Lord is both the efficient cause, the intelligent cause, and the material cause of the universe, the Jagat, how do I demonstrate that? In what ways could I demonstrate that? And we'll take a simple example such as the smallest. Let's start from an atom. Now look at this. Here you have an atom, and this atom gets put together intelligently to create a molecule. Like we said, H2. How many H's? 2 and 1 O. That means you have to already have thought through how many H's to take and how many O's to take in order to create water. When it's H4O, it's no longer water, and thus the entire system falls apart. No one can drink. So you have intelligently put together atoms to create molecules. But if you go back to that Satya-Mithya relationship, you can't really. That's actually the other way if you go downwards. But now you put together these molecules and you have intelligently put them together, and you have sand. You put sand intelligently together and you have, plus other minerals, you have clay. Okay? Now let's go backwards. Let's go from clay. Here you have clay, or let's go from a pot. We said we can't find a pot, okay? Because the pot is nothing but clay. So now let's begin the analysis from the clay. The clay we know is minerals. That means certain minerals put together, which implies intelligence. But there is actually no clay here, is there? Because when you reduce it even further, you see it's just individual minerals. So those individual minerals were put together intelligently to produce clay. But now if you look at those minerals, which are intelligently put together, so what does this mean? They possess intelligence. You actually can't find the minerals, but you can find intelligence, because we know that those minerals are intelligently put together. So now I look into those minerals and I see I actually can't find the minerals, because though they are intelligently put together, I can only find molecules. So the molecules are well put together. That means they're well thought through with a certain order and structure to create molecules, to create minerals. But wait, I can't really find the minerals either. Though they are intelligently put together and they are pervaded by intelligence because they're put together well, I can't find the molecules, I can find the atoms. And the atoms are very well put together intelligently to create that molecule. I actually can't find the atom, but I can only find intelligence. When I look into the atom, I see that the atom itself is intelligently put together with an atomic nucleus and the electron field around it. With a certain distance, the electron field revolving around the nucleus is a certain distance. If it was just slightly up or slightly down, it would no longer be an atom. The atomic nucleus, proton and neutron. So what I do know about an atom is the atom itself is an intelligent assemblage of proton, neutron, electron put together. So I can tell there is intelligence. But wait, there is no actual proton, neutron, and electron, because they too are made of something even smaller, like quarks. Now we go into waves, mere probabilities. So what does this show you? It shows you I cannot find the clay, but it's well put together. I can only find intelligence. At the smaller, as we go down, I cannot find the minerals. I can only find intelligence, because the minerals are put together. I cannot find the molecules, because when you reduce molecules, you only find atoms. I cannot find atoms, because when you look into atoms, you only find particles. But at every level, whether I go up or down, what can I find for sure? Intelligence. Why? Because if one thing is for sure, at every mithya level, from bottom down to top, there is a intelligent, well thought through putting together of particles, of atoms, of minerals, of etc. upwards. So now when I look at this, I say it is a pot, but actually I am before us holding the entire universe. Everything in the entire universe that ever was in the past, present, and future is right here. Why? Because this has all of the elements that makes up everything else in the universe. Though I don't see it, it has all of the elements. And those elements, I cannot find those elements because they're nothing but intelligence. The very same intelligence that is organizing this universe every second. Right here, one side of an object, I'm recognizing everything at once. And that intelligence, of course, also depends, due to the Satya Mithya, depends on existence awareness. So let's give us a little order here. Suppose we go from top down. We will go like this. We will go something like Maya and in brackets we will put here knowledge and power. The next level, not that there is a level, but for the sake of understanding, we will put concepts. Concepts are the blueprint, how things are to work. Laws and orders. For example, the law of cause and effect, the law of karma. Right? When there is a certain action put into the field, there will be a consequence. The law of dharma. That law that we cannot see but we all recognize as I don't want to hurt myself. That's built in all people. That's the law. So concepts. Those concepts, the blueprint, and I don't mean mental concepts, because we often think that's a concept. I do not mean, because if I don't mention this, you'll mistake. It's a concept in the mind. I'm not talking about a concept in the mind. So concepts just means the blueprint for how things are to function. Like an architect.
Gravity?
Gravity. That's going to come. What comes next? 5 subtle elements. According to the Vedic model, like very... now we have subtle elements. We can say energy, such as heat, such as magnetism, such as light, such as prana, such as electricity. You see, right now, when it's hot outside, that's energy. It's heat. And then we have something more solid. So we'll say something like 5 gross elements. You can also put this here, periodic table. But the gross elements... See, it's not entirely right, because I just realized the gross elements include time, space, also. So more like subtle elements, and then 5 gross elements. And gross elements includes time and space. And then we have energy. And now we have something more solid, such as solids, liquids, gases, okay, and all of the periodic table. So what does this mean? Anything underneath, like a object, it needs like a solid. Anything that's solid, like earth or soil or earth or tree, it requires, right, the presence of a concept. Blueprint. How will the tree work? In what way? How tall will the tree grow? At what times will it function? So anything, again, has to be pervaded by concept. Suppose we take a cell. Do you have to do anything for the cell to do its work? No, it's automated. Okay, I mean, of course, you just give it food, but the cell does what it does. Now look at this. Suppose you take atoms and you put atoms together into molecules, and molecules together into cells, and cells together into tissue, and tissue comes together into organs, and organs organize themselves intelligently in the right place to form a working, functional human body. You see the levels of intelligence at every level? We don't do this. This is automatic. Of course, we now study this, and many years you study, and you want to improve it. You want to align yourself to the right functioning of this order. Because the order says, now that I've created this system, you need to take care of it. And then we don't take care of it. And this system can only self-heal so much. But if I overload it, it comes to a point where it cannot self-repair itself. Why? Because though the order of what's going to happen to the body, how it's going to repair itself, though that order is there, present, if I suppress it too much, if I feed it too many heavy things, for instance, it can't repair itself. This is how people, slowly disrespect, violate the natural order of things. And the consequence is the body gets sick. That's why we said earlier, much earlier, it's like a computer game designer. You cannot cheat the system here because we didn't design the blueprint. The blueprint is designed as it is. We can still violate certain laws and say, I'm not going to feed myself. I'm not going to feed the body with, healthy foods. That's okay. Because I designed the system, you're going to feel the effects of that.
So, Jiva, where does Jiva come into picture in this whole?
So this is a different model. We said that Maya concepts, which is really just concepts to understand Maya. It's just really concepts, how things are to work, when things will happen, when things will not happen. Now Maya, from Maya manifests the Jagat and the Jiva. Okay, the model for that will come where the Jiva comes. Now here's one question. Can intelligence organize itself outside presence of consciousness? Why not? Because it will be inert, completely inert. There's no conscious being in which intelligence can do anything. So what does this mean? Ishvara cannot function outside Brahman. It needs to be pervaded by the self, by awareness, in order for Ishvara to put together. Just like a human being at the microcosm here at this level, if you're in a coma and there's no consciousness, no matter what you cannot put things together. So like this, just like a human being's intelligence, which is nothing but Maya's intelligence, just at a very small level, cannot put things together without the presence of consciousness. Ishvara cannot put together without the presence of consciousness. Thus, Ishvara too depends on consciousness. Okay?
Can you repeat the reason why?
Because, see, even just to ask that question, can you repeat the reason why? There has to be a conscious being in whom the whole concept of can you repeat the reason why, that's a whole intelligence put together. That was an intelligent question. That was a question made of words, well put together to create a grammatically sound question. So there was a certain level of intelligence that put together that statement. And that could have only happened in the presence of an awareful I. Otherwise, we're talking about intelligence that's inert. It's like in a coma. There's so much intelligence there in that mind, in that brain, but there's no being, there's no consciousness to activate it. There's no consciousness to say, I will create. Okay? Think about that. If you observe your human body, you will see that this intelligence puts together atoms that are reasonably similar, that make up your, suppose, heart. But at the same time, your heart is very different from somebody else's heart, isn't it? And that's just at the human level. So the intelligence, according to your karma, will put together an organ of all human beings to look like a heart. It will all function in the same way. It will okay? But at the same time, it will make slight differences according to your individual genetical framework. You don't do this. The intelligence does this for every single individual in the past, present, and future, and will continue to do that. Not only for the human heart, it will do that also for the tigers, the fishes, the snakes, the lions, for everyone's heart. And that's just the heart. It also does that for the lungs. Creates everyone's lungs at the human scale is more or less the same, but slightly also smaller or bigger. Does that in the past, present, and future. It never fails. And then it does it for every other living species, depending on the category. You got mammals, you got amphibians, you got fish. Every one of them is endowed with a certain range of abilities. And those range of abilities, like flying, is given to a bird. It's not given to a fish or a human. A human is given the range of capacities for sophisticated discernment. It's not given to a dog. That's why when a police dog, you take out, the dog doesn't find the suspect. You know what happens? You have to lead the dog. That's why you need the master. The dog is just busy sniffing too long. And the master says, no, there's no way he could have hid there. Let's move on, dog. So you have to work together with the dog's intelligence. So the range of capacities is given for every single species, and you don't have to intervene with this because it's done for you automatically. That's amazing how the intelligence has to do this for every being. That's vast. Vast amount of intelligence. So vast that, compare it to yourselves, you have to take your own body to the doctor and say, help me. I don't know what to do with my body. And yet we've been carrying this body for all our lives, thinking, I'm the body, I'm the body. Well, if you're really the body, you should know everything about your body. Well, we clearly don't. Therefore, we haven't designed it. It's not mine. It is clearly somebody else's. Not that there is a somebody else, but it's clearly not mine. And additionally, this organizing intelligence is not random, because though it looks random, suppose you take a seed, like a plant seed. When would that seed grow? When you put it in soil, or when you put it in metal, like scraps of metal? In soil. But that's very interesting, because both the soil and the scrap of metal is made of the same atoms. And yet, it will only grow when you add water. When it contacts water plus soil, then it's going to sprout. That's programming right there in the seed. If you ever seen a show about the microscopic world, I watched it on YouTube about the amount of small microbes that we all miss when nobody pays attention to this because it's not our thing. We're too much on life. But the microbe world is just full of life, so much movement and interaction together, and sometimes you just see yourself as a microbe of itself. You're a microbe. From now on, you're a microbe. This is a microbe too. And these microbes are swimming in Ishwara's blood. Ishwara's blood is space. And we're all microbes consuming other microbes. And there are little microbes inside your digestive tract which are living and thriving, happy families, and celebrating. And they have no idea about you, the big microbe, who's really just made up of smaller microbes called white blood cells, red blood cells, etc. And those little microbes in the stomach, they depend on microbes from the food, digesting your food. The whole world, it's just microbes. The whole thing is alive, moving in this intelligent assembly. Microbes within microbes within microbes. So if there's one thing for sure that we can see, is that I cannot find a form anywhere. Because when I look into that form, it's actually something else. Do you understand this so far? When I look into the spot, I can't find the pot because it's more clay than the pot. That's for sure. But if there's one thing for sure, at every mithya level, I can find intelligence. That's the Lord. I can find none other than God. And this intelligence puts things, insanely complex things together. For example, you take photosynthesis, and we just say one word, photosynthesis. But photosynthesis basically includes something like this. Okay, this is photosynthesis, which you know, right? It's taking the energy of the sun, converting it into chemical energy. Okay, so it's CO2. You need 2 oxygen atoms plus H2O plus C6O6 H12 plus O2. Now this is basically glucose. Huh? No, this is called glucose. Equals photosynthesis. This is basically sugar. Okay. So now, could you do this? Okay, because if I someone said yes. If I put 7 here instead of 6, it's no longer photosynthesis. This is standard formula for all photosynthesis for plants. That's what's required. You need CO2 plus H2O plus plus O2 equals photosynthesis is able to convert energy into chemical energy, heat energy. So put back here 6. Who thought of this? Look at the complexity. It's insane. And that's just one small example. So the point of showing this is that there is intelligence at every single level. And can you now, knowing this, that all there is here is intelligence, and the material is none other than that intelligence too, can you miss the presence of God? That's insane to even think that. Even to say I missed, even that thought is just material, Lord's material. So how can I now be isolated? How can I feel like I'm not in touch with the Lord? Where will I not find the Lord now? If He is nothing but this intelligence and this material that we see and experience. So now devotion takes an entirely new word. It's no longer I'm devoting to Him over there. He is this right now in the form of knowledge and power. The omnipotent, the omniscient. So when you start to live like this, sense of isolation goes away. A sense of insecurity goes away, a sense of uncertainty goes away. He is in this moment, his knowledge and power manifesting as laws and orders which are running this entire show right now. So now when the wise person sees a form, what does a wise person see? But what would a wise person see simultaneously? Okay, go on. He also sees clay, he sees molecules, he sees atoms, he sees intelligence depending upon existence and awareness. Okay, it's just a cognitive understanding. It's simple as that. It was never about going somewhere. Because even if you go to heaven, heaven is also made of 5 elements, just rearranged differently. So now I spend my whole life just trying to see, just put VR glasses on. It's basically like that. Just put VR glasses and colors are different. The sense of space and time is different, but the point is it's still essentially 5 subtle elements and 5 gross elements. Nothing's changed. All I did was just chased a rearrangement of elements. And elements are nothing but Ishvara. And what kind of material cause is Ishvara? It is a material cause that is constantly reshuffling and organizing itself, but always remaining Ishvara. That means intelligence is always reshuffling, just like in your mind. The mind's always reshuffling that intelligence to manifest as mountains and trees, space and time. In that same way, Ishvara is reshuffling itself, its intelligence, to manifest as this very world right now. I use an example of this sometimes. If you imagine, and we have to now drop the imagination, but I'll get you to imagine, like zeros and ones. Everywhere zeros and ones, kind of like Matrix, right? Everywhere zero. There's only zeros and ones. And zeros and ones are reshuffling in such a combination that when you see, for example, on a screen, you see so many images on a computer monitor. Such a complex world of color that you can endlessly immerse yourself in. And you also got some locas on the computer game, right? But that color, that pixel, that law, that result is nothing but zeros and ones, basically. That's it. Zeros and ones in endless combination, producing a very immersive, realistic, well thought through and sound game. But zeros and ones always remain zeros and ones. In that same way, Ishvara always remains Ishvara while reshuffling itself to accommodate the changes that we are putting into the field. So if you and I turn on the music, then Ishvara rearranges itself in a form of that. Why? Because someone who's also none other than Ishvara's intelligence turned on the radio. So all that you're ever experiencing is one intelligence right now that's endlessly reorganizing itself to obtain as these forms.
And also the first seed, is that also reshuffling intelligence? The first seed, the tree is coming from the seed, it's coming from the tree, the first seed, very...
Okay, so again, we said that, see, in this cyclical creation, there's no real first to anything. Otherwise, it's going to throw up very silly questions that we throw on the dinner table. What came first, the chicken or the egg, the father or the son, the seed or the tree? That's because of the linear system. But we don't have that linear system, that first. There's no first jiva, first tree, first egg, first chicken. It always was. And you're just experiencing what always was.
It always was in potential, no?
Yes, it was in potential, yeah. For example, when you say, when was the first dinosaur? Well, the dinosaur was already in potential. And so the dinosaur had its chance, and the dinosaurs are now back into potential. That means dinosaurs can come again. You just have to give them the right circumstances, and they will thrive again. Now, when you study, for instance, Ishvara in a form of pets. Suppose you're a pet lover and you want to help pets out. You're studying only Ishvara's intelligence, which is related to animals. Now, what do we call you now? We call you a veterinarian. And then you study Ishvara's intelligence, the human body, and we call you a doctor. And then you study Ishvara's intelligence for architecture. We call you an architect. And all of these take years and years to learn. What does this mean? If it takes you 5 years to learn to become a vet, it shows you how much knowledge there is just for a single dog. How much knowledge there is just for a single eye. Optometrist. And then to specialize in the retina of the eye, that's an extra 5 years. Just the retina alone, an extra 5 years. So what does that say? The fact that I have to study it for so long shows you how much knowledge to make a retina work. 5 years just for one small component out of countless components. That's how much knowledge and complexity there is, that we have to spend 5 years studying something which is none other than Ishvara. And this Ishvara that I said, which is all that is here, what's important to understand is it never gets affected by what happens here. For instance, suppose there is anger. Someone goes through anger. Now, when there is anger, what happens to the cells in the brain? Suppose about 20 cells come together, neurons. This is just very hypothetical. 20 neurons come together and they produce anger. Okay? And there's a genuine anger expression. Now, if I look inside those individual neurons, can I find anger? Will I find an angry neuron? Just destroying every other neuron. No. So I can't find anger inside a neuron. But when those 20 neurons, whatever those neurons are, they come together and now there's anger. So can't find anger at the level of the neuron, then what to say about that which makes up the neuron? Can you find anger at the molecule level? Can you find an angry atom? An angry proton? You can't do it. Now, if I can't find an angry neuron, then what to say that which the neuron, the molecule, the atom, the proton, neutron, electron, what to say about Ishvara being angry or taking on that anger? That's why I say Ishvara is parinami upadana karanam. Though it is constantly reorganizing itself, it never takes on the emotions and the loads that we experience at this mithya level. Same thing here. Whatever happens to the pot, it doesn't happen to the clay. Whatever happens to the clay doesn't happen to the atoms. Same thing. See, if Ishvara was affected by our foolishness, then who would be the most loaded being in the universe? It would be Ishvara. And to that being I will be praying. Ishvara is busy having a psychiatrist, Ishvara. Okay? So Ishvara remains completely free as itself, as this intelligent, all knowledge, all power, while at the level of this mithya, so many things, anger and happiness and joy is taking place. Ishvara is just resting as the whole, as himself. Nothing is happening. At this level, so many things are happening. It just makes you think how reality is organized. It's like at this level, drama. At the level of the atoms, atoms are just chilling out. I'm an atom. Nothing's happening at the level of atoms. At the level of Ishvara, I am the whole.
You don't use it, but James Watts used Ishvara 1 and Ishvara 2.
Yes, I used to do that. Because Advaita doesn't use that, for me it got very confusing. But basically Ishvara 1 is Brahman, consciousness, and Ishvara 2 is knowledge and power. He used that because people tend to use Ishvara a lot. So he wanted to now use that word and just say, okay, there's Ishvara 1, there's Ishvara 2. And so,
And Brahman is more clear now.
yeah, Brahman, so I used it for maybe first 1 year, and then I found myself getting a little bit confused by that, kind of having to 1 and 2 thing. And it's not part of the tradition. Yeah, so I stuck back to Brahman and knowledge and power. Ishvara manifests all laws, and the 2 major laws that it manifests, except all of the laws of how things are to work, is, as I said, law of dharma and law of karma. And these laws govern your life as to, what will you do and how will you conduct yourself as a being in this world. What's the right way to live? That too has to be already planned and well thought through. Otherwise, there's no way to evolve. If evolution was not possible, it would have not been a well thought through system. But because Ishvara is all knowledge and all power, he has already thought it through well enough that even if you forget all knowledge and all scriptures, somehow you find your way back. That's how it is. That's why suffering is a great catalyst for knowledge. Now, suppose you're overwhelmed by all this and there's a little bit too much to consume. Then how do we simplify this? And it's very easy with a simple mantra called the Om mantra. And I will now explain this, what this Om means. It means it's 3 letters, A, U, and M. And the purpose of this Om mantra is to bring the presence of Ishvara in one simple mantra, like Om. In that one Om, you brought all these facets of Ishvara. So the first letter of Om is A for apple. And this represents all physical forms in the past, present, and the future. So anything that ever existed in the past was Ishvara. Anything that physically exists now is Ishvara. And everything that ever will exist in the future is also Ishvara. And everything that exists always has a certain feature attached to it. So that feature, of course, is not an accident. It's because of Ishvara's presence. Now, when you take the total physical of all that is, the past, present, and future, we in Sanskrit call that Virat. Now, this will not really be sometimes useful for you, but some of us want to know, so I'll write it down. Virat. Virat just means total physical. Now, when you consider your physical, just your one physical, we call that in Sanskrit Vishwa. So when you say that because that Om is actually just 3 letters, and then you combine those 3 letters and you have Om. So if you just say right now, now stop. Now while you're saying let your mind think and let it include everything that's possibly physical, as much as you can. Physical, past, present, future, different worlds, include it all inside that Good. And then the word or the letter U, U, stands for the total subtle. In other words, Ishvara is that which governs what would the ant's mind be like, what would a human's mind capacities enjoy, what would a tiger's mind enjoy, what kind of capacities will enjoy, what kind of capacities will a monkey's mind enjoy. So it is that intelligence that governs what each species and how things are going to work. So it's the blueprint of all things, the subtle. The total blueprint is what we call in Sanskrit, the total intelligence blueprint, what we call Hiranyagarbha. What is Hiranyagarbha? It's the total blueprint that governs all things, how they will be and how they will work. When it comes to the jiva, to the microcosm, we call that Taijasa. Taijasa, or a better name is subtle body. A sukshma sharira. So now let's do a little practice. When you say U, you will think about all of the intelligence that's governing that bird, that's governing your mind, that's governing everyone's mind. Just try to conceptualize that. Now let's do A, and we're going to switch to U, and while doing that, you're going to think of all physical and all intelligence that's governing everything. Okay. And Aum is for all things that are yet to come. In other words, it is the entire causal that determines what is yet to come according to what we're doing today. So what is yet to come in 1 year depends on what we're doing today. So the total causal we call Maya. And your causal now we can say is Karana. Karana Sharira. So here when you say then you're including all those things that are yet to come. You're just recognizing there is a potential for things to come, and that potential is not excluded from the Lord. So let's practice. Okay. So let's do Aum, and you will contemplate. And we'll do it 3 times. Again. Now we're going to combine that into a shorter version, Om. And so when you say Om, attempt to include all of that inside one single Om. Of course, the is quite easy, but that O you're going to have to divide into A and U. Again. Think. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.